Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon podcast and the instant reaction. Arsenal 5, Crystal Palace 1 at Selhurst Park. George, 5 years in charge for Mikel Arteta, 5-goal win. Some to discuss, definitely. Certainly in the sort of probably end of first half, beginning of the second, and aspects of the first as well. But overall, really, really big win on a big weekend where a lot of the people around us are going away. Dropping points, Man City, what is going on there? So important to get this win. I think if we'd lost that, or when that goal went in for Saar, I was thinking, do not do this, do not do this. So I'm really pleased we sat here with a win. Overall feelings.
I thought it was brilliant. I love this performance because it showed a level of transition efficiency we haven't shown all season, and that's I think. For me, when I had a look at the game, I'll be honest, okay, it was annoying to concede in the manner that we did. There were some uncharacteristic starts that I thought had a struggle of a match. I look at David Raya, who had a tough start to the match, ended quite brilliantly, had a couple of really good saves to bounce back. Saliba, difficult start. Gabriel, difficult start.
What's he doing?
And so uncharacteristic from that aspect. And then, I don't know, I thought that this team looked a little bit more fluid with the diamond formation there. And, my son Miles was absolutely incredible. I hope we have a section on him because what he offered on that left-hand side and in the back line was a level of composure that I just don't think anybody in the back 4 or 5 really did whilst he was on the pitch. And then it was strange because I felt like Odegaard had a mixed match game, that there was sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit in the Gattuso manner, where I think when the game became a little bit more of a stretch and a fight, he disappeared a bit. But then when we were on top, he was really doing well to pull outside the pivot, get away from the battle a little bit more, and really open himself up in the game. And then I think Martinelli had a brilliant game all round, just on the left when he started. I thought when he moved to the right-hand side of the pitch, his final action was really brilliant.
Yep.
And of course, we're going to have a section on Jesus because this finishing on show today is exactly why he is the most frustrating player I've ever seen in my life. The chance that he misses is the absolute easiest one.
Yeah.
Finishing on the other ones are absolutely brilliant. They're
the one off the corner is crazy. It's a crazy finish.
And their instincts, what I liked about it, they were instincts in the box. There's clearly been a movement where I think the team has gotten a jolt. Whether you want to call it from the Monday Night Football and you want to go down that little conspiracy rabbit hole, whatever Jamie Carragher was saying really got to the boys. I think since Monday, really, I've seen a really big intent on both Palace games to play forward, play early, and play strong. And I think it's fun to see because I think we have that in us. When we do it, I feel like we look like a completely different outfit. I mean, people are going to sit there and say, wow, our attackers are brilliant. But I would just argue it's about intent. Like, just play forward with some confidence and you're going to create some things. And I felt like this was a very physical Palace performance. And I think we weren't given the 5-1. This is a brilliant scoreline from brilliant performances, and we'll talk about the second half because I thought there's a lot to talk about there. Declan Rice cameo, etc. But all in all, I don't think Palace gave us a 5-1. We worked them to really dominate, and we deserved the 5-1. So I was really happy with this performance, and it showed me a level of transition efficiency that I've been yearning for. So happy days.
Yeah. Someone just put in the chat that we're 10 games unbeaten. Is that true? Doesn't feel like that, does it? But I think that's right because we haven't lost since Inter Milan.
Well, the draws have felt like losses.
Yeah, they felt like losses, but that's 10 games unbeaten, which is really impressive. Yeah, it's weird, this game. It feels like everything we've been calling, like we were really efficient in the box. We transitioned well. Jesus was finishing. Martinelli was efficient. We went forward. We played with some tempo. It was a really sort of for all the problems that we've had this season. It felt like we sort of flipped the dime. And then defensively, I would say in the first half, I was quite concerned with some of the things I saw and what we were doing in terms of on the ball, the spaces that Palace. I think I don't want to spend too much time on this, so let's just get out of the way now. I think one of the concerns before Rice came on for me was the spaces between the centre backs and the midfield. I think there was an issue in the build-up as well, but Palace were really finding space, especially on the left-hand side. Those blindside runs off Timber, we weren't tracking them. Saar was finding space in the left half space. There was a lot of stuff going on in defensively that I was not keen on. And also in build up, because we were matching them up I felt 4v4, but they were goal side. I think we really struggled to get central access. But once we which is kind of a longer term problem, but the defensive issues I hadn't seen coming, and I think maybe will come down to the individuals, and I don't think it's a long term issue, so let's not spend too much time on them. But there was some concerns that were so unlike Arsenal. But then we were transitioning and we were finding space and sort of carrying through the midfield with players like Miles and stuff. So it was a weird game, and I feel the inclusion of players like Miles and Jesus with the sort of the confidence, and Rice coming on with a bit more freshness, and players coming on and showing us something, I think gives us so much. I think on days where we have lost or drawn in the last 10, we've been crying out for a bit of tempo, a bit of bravery, a bit of sort of belief in yourself. And I think we saw that today with a number of performances. I think Jesus, I mean, that is let's come on to him. A hell of a drug, confidence. It really is. I mean, the belief in himself, the bounce isn't maybe peak Jesus, but the desire and the intent to go forward, the intent to play, the intent to be there, have those shots, I think is really, really important, and I think underpinned this performance for me.
It's just about being aggressive in the final third for me, and he's got an ability to do it. I think. Look, there's a lot of psychological things that I just don't know how to fix. Like, I look at the collection of finishes and I say, I can't teach you to miss the one that you missed and score the ones that you did. But one thing is, I do think that you buy your own luck when you're as aggressive as he is all throughout the match. And that's why, for me, it's just about maintaining that intensity. And if, this idea that he's almost got 2 hat-tricks in 2 games after not scoring a goal for almost the entirety of the year, you put that to one side because you look at the desire, the intensity, and the application that he shows. And as long as those things are okay, I can sit there and I can accept when things don't come off. I don't love it, but I can accept it. And there was a level of when things weren't going well, which you do understand, there wasn't that intensity. There wasn't that intensity or aggression in his play. And then there was almost extra touches, doing too much. And there was some of that stuff, but that's not the case right now. And, of course, confidence will come back. And I thought he was a lot more secure as an out ball today.
Yeah.
And, when we were trying to go over the top, and we were trying to go to him, his touch was secure. He was really holding off players. And look, he grew. He grew with the goals. And I think you got to play a player in form like this. We know what the limitations are, but having a striker that's able to move across the front line in the way that he does creates things for other people. And that's what I love. That's the aspect of Jesus, that if I could put you in a more fit body that's a little bit taller and perhaps a little bit more clinical, in transition, that like movement, that willingness to kind of go on the outside, willingness to offer yourself inside, willing to be available, is something that I've always admired about Jesus. So that for me is something that I think he's carried through from the last game, and that I hope he carries through. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad that, Kai's going through a little bit of, for me at least, rough form, because we've got somebody that's picking it up. And I always said, for me, between Sterling and Jesus, we needed one of them to do something this season. No matter how much I've criticized the existential part of the windows and whatever, let's put that to a side. We needed one of them to do something this season if we wanted to win trophies. And I really hope that this is the start of Gabriel Jesus' run.
Yep, especially with Saka going out, which was a big blow. It's funny, this game, because, I'm just looking at our form. We've obviously won this game, 2 draws, but then 3 wins in our previous 5. So that's 4 wins in 6 in the Premier League. And I'm sort of coming away from a 5-1 win at a very difficult away ground, Selhurst Park. Let's make no mistake. This isn't a ground that you go to and you just scam a win. This is you have to really work for this. And it's a difficult team. I'm looking at, I'm starting to think about in the middle of that game, like the quality in this league. Do we have to put a section on the instant reaction about players that I would look at for Arsenal every single time? Almost every single Premier League team, I'm going, Lacroix's looking good. I like the look of Tarek Mitchell, how he dealt with Bukayo Saka and stuff. There's the quality in this league is unbelievable. But I sort of feel off the back of a 5-1 win, good. I'm not elated. I'm not sat here, and maybe I should be, but I'm sort of going, that's who we are. That's who we are. That's who we are. And it's kind of a return to what we know we can do. I suppose maybe the question would be, is like, the frustration is when we don't show that, because we know we can do that. We have 2 years worth of sample of us doing that now. And so and maybe this is unfair on the team, but I think now I come to a point where I'm seeing a 5-1 performance away from home and and what we did today and going, yeah, well, that's who we are. And I expect that. And that's the standards. That's what we've sort of played our way into. But equally, do the team deserve a bit more credit? Because that's not simple. Even if the fans are just going, well, yeah, that's what we do. It's not simple. That was an impressive performance.
No, but I want to step back because you have to look at the context about what Palace were coming in terms of their performance, their form, and then coming into it as potentially what people were saying is the form team in the league. And regardless of what you're talking about, especially their performances at home, they're no slouches. And so when you have that, it's been 2 performances on the bounce that we've really swiftly dealt with them. And look, we've had analysis in those last couple of weeks when I'm trying to go back, think back your mentality when we really were struggling a couple of weeks ago. And as a whole, bar basically Fulham and Everton, which are things that we didn't expect. Those are Fulham, you could maybe say the idea was good, but things weren't coming off. But then Everton was such an abject performance that it really skewed people's ideas about how much we've actually scored since even Sporting. Like you look at it and you look at the goals, it's been incredible. We've gone into a gluttony of potential big 5-1 wins. And, we absolutely show the capability to do it. It's all about responding and not creating sequences where there's a large stretch of fixtures that you drop points, where you don't drop them in a collection. That's always been my point. And I think right now, what, like we've said, is we've gotten back on track about playing our football. And I do think that this 3-4-3, you were making reference how it makes us a little bit more open. To be honest, I think everybody was okay with that, especially when you have the backdrop of what was happening before with the slow tempo. I will take vertical, quick, aggressive tempo and conceding more chances all day in favor of slow, tepid, controlled, final third, predictable possession. And so, look, I don't love the way that, our center backs performed. I don't think that's normal. I think they don't normally play like that. I mean, Saliba's been in the form of his career almost, and then dropped a really difficult game. It happens, but you have those two back with Declan Rice starting in 90 minutes. And I think that your control of transitions looks very different. So you combine that, and I think, it gets really good. And, look, ultimately, I just think that there's a lot of players that have stepped up, that have had difficult seasons. Martinelli, Jesus, Miles Lewis-Kelly, somebody that we're finding. Not that we're finding. I found him for so long, but I really want to talk about him because it is not normal to do what he did against this physical Palace side. This is the top end of English football. Can you not comment about questions of his physicality anymore? Please, I don't want to hear it. It's his superpower. To do what he did against this Palace, this threat, this press, this away end, is significant. It's the top end of the Premier League table. It doesn't get more physical than Selhurst Park, Palace, away, pressure. And he was one of the most composed players in the back line, and he was shoving off, people at will. And I just thought it was a brilliant performance, to be honest with you. I really get excited with what I'm seeing, and he's growing himself. Look, I said this before. I've said it in Discords. I don't want to see Zinchenko ahead of Miles Lewis-Kelly. I'm having a look at it, and he's bringing with us a level of completeness on that left-hand side that, we yearn for in the market. And, he in this role as an inverted left back, that's really a box-to-box in the diamond, is his perfect role. That's, for me, where I see him in the team and where I see him excelling. And I just think he's done really well these last 2 performances. He's got an opportunity right now to actually make this his own. And I've always felt that he would walk into the team and maybe impact the team a little bit more than Ethan because of that availability in terms of the question marks. But my God, he's giving us a level that it's not just that you're there because we lack quality. It's because you're quality. And yeah, I love what he's done.
JL, thank you for super chat. Correct side-footed fullbacks. Only one DM in an Arteta lineup. Jesus scoring. If I'm dreaming, please don't wake me up. Thank you so much for your super chat. I echo your thoughts on Mars. Always, it's the personality that I absolutely love, and I think you see that in when he takes the ball, how he takes the ball, where he drives, all that stuff. And we can't ignore the fact that Kivior's on the bench and Tierney's on the bench, and there was another left back somewhere in the squad. Who am I talking about? There's another left back somewhere who he picked over. And anyway, regardless, he's being picked over senior players, and consistently. And if this is his run in the team, if he's only going to get better, he's 18, which is really impressive. I think Jamie Carragher was really complimentary of him on Sky commentary, and he's absolutely right to be. Yeah, I think it was a lot more balanced. I will be honest, I didn't think Timber had his best game for Arsenal. I think he was okay. I think he was a little bit suspect defensively, got ran off a little bit by Sarr, but that's going to happen sometimes. And yeah, I think what you were sort of alluding to, the sacrifice a little bit of solidity, a little bit of screen for dynamic direct football. We've talked about how many times have I said, I'm okay to lose a little bit, out of possession to gain a little bit, because that's where we are as a team. And that's absolutely what we're doing. We'll certainly have done today and against Crystal Palace this week. So if that's going to carry on, then fantastic. Adam Wallace, nice to see Alex back. Wants to know your thoughts on the long balls from Raya, anticipating Havertz being up and Jesus not able to bring it down. I think we got a lot of joy going long, especially in the wide areas. I think because we were struggling to build up, that was probably the move. And Palace were quite high. But yeah, your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I thought Jesus was pretty strong about bringing the ball down. I don't really agree that he struggled in this game. Yeah. I think we chose to go long maybe, but that's because Palace really commit their fullbacks and the space is wide. It's not because for me, I saw people saying that we struggled to go through. Personally, the space wasn't through. It was out wide. So I was happy with that. Tyreek Mitchell and Nathaniel Klein, they're not the best running back to goal, and they definitely commit forward, and especially in the press. So for me, it made sense to attack wide. And it's why we almost went with 2 touchline wingers. I think it's just really annoying that we couldn't get Sterling, who obviously came out injured. I think he would have been a better sub than Trossard, but, ultimately Mikel employed 2 touchline wingers to really maximize the space there, because for me, I felt like, between Lerma, Mateta, that central space of Palace, they're big boys. So I don't think it made sense to go through. I think it made sense to go around, and I think we exploited it.
Andre Burgess, who says, did we clone Timber for MLS? He is insane. Yeah, I think, though, probably I back Timber more 1v1, but in terms of the appreciation of the pass, in terms of the timing of the pass and the weight of the pass, Miles is, I don't know, that I'm looking at him going, I prefer Timber probably.
Miles 100% is more going forward. 100% is more.
Yeah, on that side.
And even I would argue defensively, Timber's going to be he is our best 1v1 player in duels for me, Timber. So I think that's a really high bar to take the chain off of, so to speak. But I do think that Miles has a lot more intensity to his challenge. Timber's a little bit more cultured in his 1v1. It's what makes him so good. I mean, he's got both the aggression, but also the ability to be calm. I think Miles is 18 and he shows it. He gets really excited and he'll smash, he'll go through you. And I think Miles does have a little bit to learn defensively. But it has less to do with kind of, I'd say 1v1 duels, but more as wide channel defending. Like at times it's still a little bit of a distance thing with him. But mate, he's just, the anticipation, I think. Miles he attacks that position like a fullback. Timber attacks it weirdly, where he's that cross of a center back to fullback, because he's got a lot more controlled aggression with his duel. But Miles, you look at it, he's going through you quick and early so that he doesn't leave himself out. And I love the proactivity, but he's also got the athleticism, right? And he's also got these really strong, long legs to he uses his legs in the tackle. Whereas I feel like Timber can use his body a little bit more. Miles is very much, he uses his legs as weapons to go and take the ball from you. So, it's a little bit of a difference.
That's what I was trying to remember earlier. Tierney, Kivior, and Calafiori, he's getting picked over. And I'd pick him over Zinchenko as well. So to consider where he is in the sort of the food chain there, that's really impressive at 18 years old. Let's have a look at the numbers before we come on to some more individual performances. So this is 1 goal to 5 from 2.3 expected goals. We scored 5, which is nice. It's a marker of our finishing and our efficiency. More possession. Yeah, I mean, Palace created two XG against us, which is quite a lot on 15 shots. I will say some of it's weird because it's a 5-1 win, but there was some poor decision making in the center of the park, I felt at times today. I felt, as I mentioned before, about the blindside runs of Timber, but I also felt there was a general lack of concentration at points in the first half, especially from central players, just sort of not really playing with much intensity or receiving the ball and sort of thinking they have more time than they necessarily had. But yeah, I think that probably shows up in the numbers. I'll be curious on the running XG. Possession 58.2 to 41.8. Passes completed 565 to their 406. 44 final third entries to their 34. 22 zone 14 touches to their 16. Running XG, yeah, looking like Palace had most of that. Yeah, created most of that in the first half. And then we sort of capitalised in the second. There's the shot map. Arsenal 2.3 XG to Crystal Palace's 2. Lots of shots centrally. I'd be curious why that is. And, of course...
the only thing that we're here for.
The only thing that matters, baby. The only thing that matters. Yeah, it's funny, and I'm sort of struggling with this, as you could probably hear, to feel like I'm coming.
You're upset.
I'm coming away.
Words in it.
I'm coming away from it not convinced by how we played, but it was a 5-1, which is exactly the opposite of our problems a lot this season, where I've been like, we are brilliant. And Mikel said it himself. We are absolutely brilliant. If we keep playing like that, we will win. If we keep playing like that, we won't win much. I think there was some performances that I weren't happy with, especially in the first half. I think we haven't necessarily gone in on it, but Saliba, there was that thing that came out about him. I don't want to go too far on it because it's one game, but just to watch it. There's a thing that came out about Zinchenko saying he can be caught for laziness sometimes. And it was that today. I think sometimes I'm like, you're so good that you just dither a little bit and you can usually get yourself out of it. And there's other days I've sat here and praised that, as an unbelievable quality. But if that had cost us today, we would be sat here saying, what are you doing? And at this level, we need to watch it, I think, is what I'm saying.
I don't know. I find it really difficult because he's been in the form legitimately of his career up until this point. And I mean, he's young. You're going to have a bad day. Look, if it was a pattern and we were seeing something that, Saliba's been doing this, then like I can hear it. But I really push back that he's been in bad form whatsoever. Like I think he's been in incredible form. One of our best players consistently. But today was just a bad day.
I'm not saying he's been in bad form. I say he's been coasting. That's what I feel. And I think sometimes with Saliba, he can just get, because he's so good, he can just go through games. I think that was one of the games that he was just gonna coast through a little bit. And again, as I say, I'm watching it. I'm not. This isn't me saying Saliba's coasting when he said get him out of the team. I'm just saying, okay, I've pinned that somewhere, and if I get more evidence for it, then I'm interested. But I hate Saliba. Yes, guys. Let's come on to another individual performance. Kai Havertz in the midfield was an interesting one. My issue with Havertz in midfield was never really the fit, because there was a game, Villa at home last season, where he was in midfield, and I thought the timing of his runs alongside, I think, Trossard that day was really, really nice. I think he has the quality, the technical quality to play in that position. I think he has the off-the-ball quality to play in that position. It was mainly his decision-making. But today hasn't really convinced me either way. I don't really know. There were some moments, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe not so good. There were some nice moments. I didn't notice him particularly, but yeah, what did you make of him in that role?
I think Miles showed me more in those zones than Havertz has, and I think he's made a good look. The best parts of his game today were center forward-y type traits, like the run, like the goal. That is a great moment. That's him in the box. That's where I know he's good. But when, I think when he's in the middle third, he's just out of the game, and I feel as though he'll always give you a baseline 7.5 out of 10 in the duels. So from that perspective, it's not like he hurts your shape. It's not like he adds to it, though. And that's what I think is the frustrating. He's just good and okay and consistent in midfield. And I think that there will be games for it. I think it only works really well when he has more of an opportunity to stretch. And I don't think he did. Like, he had to do a lot more work in the middle of the park in terms of some of his dueling. He wasn't really the last line runner, which, by the way, I prefer, because it let Martinelli, it let our wingers, it let our more dangerous players be that. I just don't think it's a role that suits him. Like, when I'm looking at it, I would have preferred Mikel Merino to take that role from the outset. But I think we're also looking at a player who, for the last couple games, has been, I think, okay. Hasn't got back to his form. And I think we're just working through, we have a fitness concern for me. And I think Jesus was so good at center forward. We couldn't put him there. And it would be very difficult to basically have a hat-trick hero and put him on the bench or at left wing or somewhere where he wasn't going to be. So I think it was some of that. I think it works in certain games. I don't love it as a long-term position. It's a versatility thing. It's kind of like saying, how do you feel about Partey at right back? It can work. I don't love it. There's clear limitations. There's clear weaknesses. But can we do it in a bind? Can we do it in certain games? Can we do it for a very short period of time? Yeah, it's no problem with
that. Yeah, I hear that. I think it feels like games where we're trying to affect the last line, and he wasn't doing that from that position. He was actually drifting over and affecting the last line on the right. And I was sort of going, okay, fine, but sure. Let's come to this one from McLovin. I hope the real McLovin. Is this 3-4-3 diamond something we should keep going forward with a fit Rice and Kala? It will improve our transition in control. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it sacrifices a little bit, probably going backwards without this sort of the double pivot. But look, we've been calling all season for a bit more stretch, a little bit more tempo, a little bit more, what's happening. And I think Ødegaard, actually, we haven't necessarily spoken about Ødegaard and how much he was dropping in today. That's the only part of it I don't necessarily... I just slightly worry about Ødegaard sometimes when people press onto him. He's so good, but there was a couple of times where he was really deep and he lost it. Could just be the day. That's my only concern in this diamond, that you lose a little bit of that and Ødegaard's dropping in. But other than that, with every system, there's benefits and drawbacks. So for what we're seeing, if we're getting 5-1 wins out of it, then let's keep going.
I definitely think, though, like when you don't have as much of your big space runners, it does hurt. Like when you talk about Kala and Rice, just the amount of duels and running power that you've got running back to goal with just those two alone is huge. And then you're ignoring the unusual performances of our center back partnership, which don't perform like they did today. Yeah. You add their normal level with these two, like that's huge. That is huge from a transition control aspect. So yes, it does sacrifice a bit, but I'll really be honest. If you see this 3-4-3 consistently, the starting 11, for more than 5 games, let's just call it 5 games, I think you'll see that the transition control is the exact same as what we've had. And it gives us a little bit more going forward. I think also it is a new system, no doubt. So whenever you do tweak and you do those things, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to understand your assignments and where you need to be. But for the most part, I love it as a system. It's not my favorite system, but I do think that it gets our players in zones that they prefer and more of them. So I look at Martin Ødegaard as, although he had some moments, that's the best way to use him broadly. I don't want him, it's going to sound rude, but I don't want him in the final third being the final pass. I don't want him doing that. I want him in the middle third, dictating our build-up and our tempo and being able to set the tone of the match in that sense. I want Declan in central zones being the anchor, running things. I want, a left central midfielder that is able to really play box-to-box properly. Like, I want our wingers to be supported. I would like... And I think this diamond, what it does really well is it has a lot of really good security if one of your wide center backs wants to bomb on. So if you look at the Ben White overlap, you look at the Calafiori overlap, you look at from those areas going from deep high and those big runs, it's very secure because you can easily drop into a pivot. That switch becomes very easy. So I think from kind of a Premier League standpoint, we're going to see the 3-4-3 diamond a lot more because that's where the demand is. I don't know about Europe, personally. I think that's still something that when I see this worked out more is when I'll decide. But I think Europe, we might not employ it as much as we do in the Premier League.
Calafiori is such an emotional boy, shouted loudly in injury. Also, did we see a small Waneri striker experiment? I didn't see that. On the Calafiori thing, yeah. I was like, oh. And it did look pretty...
It was nasty. That was a red card, mate.
It was a pretty... I don't know if it was a red card, but it was a definite red card. I think it slowed down. Those things always look. It wasn't definite. I think he just goes for the ball.
No, but I have to disagree. That studs up going... If that is an inch or two higher, you're looking seriously at a broken leg. Like, that is an incredibly dangerous tackle. I really... He led with the studs. It wasn't like he went over the ball or he went over a foot. He was leading with... I think that was a horrific challenge, personally.
Fair enough. I think it was a yellow. I don't think it was red. But yeah, I think Yeah, when he screamed, I was like, oh God, not again. But on injuries, we are going to have to deal with the next couple of games without Bukayo Saka.
Hamstring.
I don't. Obviously, we're pre any information about that coming out, so we're recording this. We don't know, but I would suspect that's a grade 1 type situation, probably a couple of weeks out. In the next couple of fixtures, we've got Ipswich, Brentford away, and Brighton away. Jesus on the right, Martinelli on the right. I really like Martinelli on the right. I thought his crossing today was really, really good. Really good.
Jesus in this form has to play striker. He's a brilliant right wing option, but I love Martinelli there for the same reasons that I would love a Jesus there. I think they're both really good touchline wingers in those situations. I think they both work hard. They both create really good separation. They're both got some fairly good crossing timing. I don't know if it's the most expansive crossing that I've seen, but I just feel like Martinelli and Jesus, they both do really well in those situations to simplify their final action. So for me, it's fine. I mean, we've lost. Look, it's not fine because Bukayo Saka for me is the best player in the league, bar Salah. I'm not hearing anybody else. So missing him is going to suck, no matter how you slice it. But personally, I don't think we're in as much of a trouble, especially as we're finding a little bit more and more players in attack. So I'm okay with that.
Let's finish on this. Carabao Cup, we are in the semi-finals against Newcastle. Champions League, we are 3rd in the league. Premier League, we're now 3 points off Liverpool. Yep, they've got 2 games in hand, but we're 3 points off the top. You can only win the games in front of you. And obviously, FA Cup, we've got Manchester United at home, which I think we'll be all right with. It's been a topsy-turvy season. It's been a weird one to analyze because we've kind of known how good we are, and then we haven't shown it, and then we've shown it on Sundays, but it hasn't gone for us, and we've had the refereeing stuff and red cards and so much stuff that's happened. How are we feeling? How are we left feeling after today? Because, as I say, on an individual basis, this maybe this game should be filling me with more joy. I think there was more concerns, really. But if I'm stepping back, I think I'm feeling quite positive. I think I'm feeling really positive about the season, about where we are. There's still just such a long way to go. And it's difficult to keep saying that. But you say it in September, and people are still trying to call it every week. 2nd week of September, 3rd week of September, 4th week of September. And you end up saying it over and over again. And the fact is, until we get to February, March, this season is never going to be over. I just think we have to keep on going. It's the most boring thing in the world, but I'm really positive about where we are and what we're beginning to show, because we addressed a lot of our issues today. Okay, we maybe overcorrected a little bit for me, but what we've been trying to fix in the last couple of weeks, I think I've seen that.
Mate, I think the season isn't written. I don't want to keep coming back and repeating some of the same things that we've already said on pods. I'll just keep it short and simple. Spurs have something for Liverpool, and that's going to be a basketball game, and it's going to be a shootout. If you thought this was a shootout, that's going to be a proper shootout. And I just don't think that they're including us, by the way. I don't think there's a leader in the league. So we're just looking forward to hopefully trying to push on, do better. We fixed some of our football. Let's go on a run and let's see where we are. From March onward is when you start looking at things between title charges and being within, for me, at least 7 points. Like that's the minimum distance.
You just can't project too far forward, and that's really hard. It's really hard not to do, especially after it's funny because after a win, you go game by game, just go next game. But after a loss, we're going to lose every other game, and it is hard not to do that. But I think as much as it probably annoys some people when we do lose, and you and I sat here saying 1 game at a time, it's the same when we win, 1 game at a time.
Yeah.
Sharky, we've had a very, very kind super chat. That is very kind. Is that from Sharky from STS? I don't know. If it is Sharky from STS, thank you very much, sir. But if it's not, either way, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Really supports the channel. And if you would like to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon and YouTube memberships. We've got probably a rewatch of the Palace game coming. We did a scouted episode on not Semenyo. Yeah, on Semenyo. Earlier on in the week. We've got a data pod coming up soon. We've got a youth pod coming up soon. Loads of stuff exclusive for patrons, but you've also got ad-free episodes of the main podcast, etc., which we'll record tomorrow. Be out on Monday. Anything else, George?
No, mate, just like thanks for all the support, guys. Like we really appreciate it. Yeah, we've got some nice stuff coming up. If you guys like some of the scouted, we're going to make sure to try to be a little bit more consistent with that and schedules and stuff. So go check out Antoine Semenyo if you haven't. And we'll probably be doing a rewatch of this game. It'll be fun. I'll be excited to kind of look at the first half, second half stuff.
For sure. And again, Sharky, you're a legend. Very kind. Thank you all for being here. Check out the instant reaction after every Arsenal game for about half an hour. Thanks for watching. And thanks. Hang on, StreamYard have moved things around, so I don't know how to cue this up. Here we go. Got it. Ready? Thanks for keeping it Arsenal.